sounds okay. I only see Jason's beautiful face. Where's everyone else?
Good
Good afternoon, Deborah.
afternoon.
I had to get my leaded coffee here. So, how is everyone? How's real estate? There should be a script to that.
Busy.
Busy. Busy for me as well. So, if your phone is not ringing, lead generate. All right. Welcome to Broker Chat. It is 12 o'clock on my clock, and I want to welcome all of you from the heart of Atlanta. My name is Deborah Blue. For those of you that are not familiar with me, I have been with Keller Williams this year, 28 years, or not with Keller Williams, but licensed for 28 years. And I'm the managing broker in the Midtown office. We have Tom as our qualifying broker, and Angie is also a broker of the heart of Atlanta. And each month we do 2 broker chats on a Monday at noon. And this is for you. A lot of times we will have a topic, which I do have a topic today, but I want to start out by welcoming you. And is there anyone on the chat that has not been to this before? Introduce yourself to me, please. Or not.
Hello,
Oh, okay, there we go. There's a brave soul.
I'm Brian. This is my first time attending the class.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Brian, thank you for coming. Are you in our market center or are you in a different market center?
Yeah, I'm in your market center.
Beautiful. I think I met you at the orientation, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, I remember now. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. So this is for you to ask any burning questions you might have. Of course, you're always welcome to call your team leader, your coach, or myself direct, but this is a way for people to ask questions about something strange happening on the street. I
Okay.
had 2 strange calls this morning, so if you ever run into that, you're welcome to call any of those people. Anyone else want to introduce themselves? I'm all ears. No? Well, we'll get started because I'm being kicked off early for the next person who needs the Zoom. So I will go ahead and get started. Let me get my, share my screen with you. Let's see if I have this open. I do. So let's get started. The first thing I want to remind you, I don't know if you're aware, but first of all, someone let me know you can see the screen. You know how technology is.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Beautiful. When you pay your board dues in October, there's another line item other than the cost of NAR, GAR, and your local board. There's one additional line called RPAC, and that's your political action, Realtor Political Action Committee at work. What they do is actually go to the Capitol to fight for homeowner rights, real estate rights, things of that nature. So in case you didn't know it, I do follow this. I have been to the Dome before. In case you didn't know it, there was a time, and they're still fighting for this, to charge agents additional taxes for our commissions. And we have fought that. So when you donate to RPAC, that's what you are doing. For those of you that own a home and you have the ability to have homestead exemption, that is straight from RPAC. So that's just an example. You'll notice there's a barcode, a QR code there. If you would like to scan that, I put together a cute little montage video so that you don't have to read all of the recap. I put it in a video for you. And that will show you the things that have passed, the things that have not passed, why that's important. It makes you a smarter agent with your clients and customers when they ask you things like, hey, can I do Airbnb and short-term rentals? There's something in there about that. Many counties and cities are trying to, and I saw it on the news just recently for Cobb County, where I am, where they are now wanting to charge that tax that would normally be charged with hotels. Because when you do an Airbnb, you take away that hotel money, that tax money from the cities and the counties. And so there's a lot of fight for that. There's a lot of fight for HOAs charging way too much money. Just a recap of different things in the entire time I've been a realtor, things we've been fighting for, things that we've won, things that are still on the table, and things that we have lost. So please don't ignore the email that you receive from your broker asking for you to tell your congressperson to vote or not vote for something. You probably have ignored it. It's gone into spam, but it's very, very important. So if anybody has any question about that, I won't take any more time on that, but you can call me directly and I can explain that to you. If you are not getting the email, you can go to your board and sign up for it as well. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to talk about 10 mistakes that we may be failing or missing or not really understanding why it's important. I had an interesting call this morning. I think Willie is going to be on the call, and I want him to kind of give an overview of it because it had to do with probate, and it was it had to do with whiteout. I don't need to say anything else, do I? Okay. Do they even still sell whiteout? Some of you are on this call and don't know what whiteout is. Don't worry about it. I don't want you to know what whiteout is. So at the end of the day, if we have enough time, we'll talk about that. But the first one is failing to completely fill the contract out. You never leave blanks. If you remember from pre-license, we were taught, or if you've ever been to any of the contract classes I teach, your contract should be filled out completely. Read the instructions because it will say anything that is not, in some cases, that's not checked does not apply. That's okay. But if it's a blank, it should have an NA in it, or it should have the details in it. All right. You must have a complete legal description. TBD is not a legal description. You're either going to get that legal description from the tax records or the seller. I like for you to mainly start with the seller if you're at a listing appointment. If you're a buyer's agent, you can always check with Haley upstairs. They have a way of getting that legal description for you, or you can ask your coach, team leader, or broker for help on that. But you must have a legal description. 123 Main Street, Atlanta, Georgia is not a legal description. If you remember pre-license, we talked about meets and bounds. Yes. If it doesn't apply, then you're going to put NA. I already said that. Areas of the contract not completed create confusion. So when you are giving this contract to the lender and you're giving this contract to the closing attorney, those are instructions for them to complete the closing. Those are instructions for your buyer and seller to know when their deadlines and things of that nature start and end. So if you don't have that information and you're in the practice of putting TBD and things of that nature, that's incorrect. Okay. Hey, Amberlyn, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a question. All right. Any questions about filling in the contract? Is everybody clear as mud on that?
I have a question regarding the legal description.
Go right ahead.
So we use GSCCCA,
Mhm.
and should I be extracting the legal description and then put it in a Word doc and attach it as an exhibit, or should I be using the entire deed that has the legal description?
You can use either one and make it an exhibit. Anything can be
Okay.
made into an exhibit. So an
Okay.
exhibit is attached to the offer. An amendment cleans it up after binding.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you can get that from the seller, you can put exhibit A. If you get that from GSCCA, you can put exhibit A. However you want to do it is fine, as long as there's a legal description attached to that contract. Good question. All right, just want to make sure no questions. All right, let's go to number 2. There are instances when the buyer agent fails to follow through on collecting earnest money. I hate to even say this in the ether, but we've been pretty good, as far as I know, in our market center of collecting and so on and so forth. But there was a rash of not collecting and paying attention to what the contract says. For those of you that know, my favorite line is, what does the contract say? If you are telling me on Friday that you went binding and the earnest money is due in 2 days, that would be Sunday. Okay. Now, if they are giving you a check, then you have the ability to walk into the market center and deliver it by putting it in an envelope and in the strong box in our particular market center. But if they are going to wire those funds to the office or to a closing attorney, they are not open on Sunday and holidays. So it's very smart to look at your calendar to make sure you're paying attention to what happens if you're the listing agent, or even if you're the buyer's agent and you have not, collected that earnest money. Are you in breach of the contract, or is the contract terminated? That's a question. I'll wait.
Breach.
Breach.
Breach is correct. Do you still have a valid contract?
Yes.
Yes, you do. Because we learned in pre-license, you can write an offer without earnest money. The reality is your seller is probably not going to take it seriously with no skin in the game, but we don't have to have earnest money to have a contract. What you have is a breach. And then you would send a notice to all parties that earnest money was due Sunday and we did not receive it. You're in breach. You need to remedy this within a certain amount of days, read your contract, and let that buyer correct that. The problem is you guys are doing due diligence, and I don't know if it's still happening. I haven't heard it lately. Due diligence and earnest money the same time. Well, then that buyer cancels before they even had to put up earnest money. I would suggest you not do that. They need to have skin in the game, because you are in the generation of contract that allows you 3 choices. When I started, there was 1. I need to have the earnest money before you get in the car. And if you're not practicing that, I would highly encourage you to make that part of your system, okay? When they come to the office to meet with you or meet you at the home, they need to be able to wire earnest money as soon as they say, let's make an offer on this. We can always reverse it, give it back, or whatever the case may be. So if you have not received information from the agent, you can call the brokerage and ask, you're supposed to be holding earnest money. Could you send me a copy of it? Get proof from the closing attorney if it's being wired to the attorney. I always ask whoever we're assigned to at the attorney to say, when you sign that 511, could you please send me back a copy of the wire and the 511? Okay, F511. You can use our service called Earnest, which all of you should have this app. If you don't, you can download it. All of our Heart of Atlanta offices are in there. You just have to find your office. You're probably already in there. You do not have to use this, but it's a good tool to use for many reasons, which I'll tell you in the future. We're working on some other things that are future broker calls that I'm going to talk to you about as far as retainer fees and things of that nature. But use this service and that way, when the buyer wires their money through Earnest, you'll automatically receive a receipt. Earnest money receipt to the other party is a courtesy. There is no such thing as, you better give me a copy of the earnest money and so on and so forth. That is a courtesy. It's a smart courtesy, because that's how we know whether it's breached or not. But there is no rule saying that you have to give the other party a copy of the earnest money. Questions? Okay, all right, we answered it. Number 3, timelines. This one gets me as well. We have a form called Dates to Remember. And I use that form when I have a contract, and either myself or my assistant will go through the contract, and every date or every timeline we have, we put those on one form and we give that to everyone, the listing agent, the buyer's agent, the depending on which side we're on, the attorney and the lender. Why? And of course, upload in command. The reason we do this is so your buyer or seller doesn't say, you didn't tell me that, or the agent says, I didn't know that. Well, you're putting it in writing, as our contract says, everything must be in writing. So by having a form already available to us and putting it in writing, you then don't have to worry about someone saying, you didn't tell me that. So when I send an email to whomever I'm representing, I have a whole format to say, congratulations. It's a whole campaign that we have. Congratulations. You'll notice you can click in your portal, your dates to remember, a copy of your contract, and anything else that I need to communicate to them. If they're the buyer, I'm also sending them the link so they can set up their utilities and things of that nature. All of that is in one place. So if you don't have something like that through Command or other resources, you need to make sure you have a system for that. Also check your calendar with setting any dates to ensure that you're not putting timelines on weekends and holidays. We're in the spring, summer season now. We've got a lot of holidays coming up next month, Memorial Day in May, Mother's Day, not an official holiday, but it is a holiday if you have a mother, because they're going to be looking at you sideways and how long they were in labor. So you better make sure you don't forget Mother's Day, okay? I'm not traumatized. But anyway, make sure that you check your calendar to ensure that you're not falling on weekends and holidays. And too often our buyers lose their earnest money because they are not fully aware that they have to do things at a certain time. So if you have a stubborn buyer or seller, one of the things that I repeat constantly when they might call and try to push back, and I'll say, well, that's okay. I just want you to know, if you don't do this for me by this time, your earnest money is gone. I'm just very blunt about it. Okay. Now you might get that buyer or seller who says, I don't care, they can take it, whatever. They don't really mean it. But sometimes you do have some that don't care and they walk away and leave $20,000, $30,000 earnest money or whatever. But if you keep reminding someone that you're going to be in breach, you have the ability, you may have a lawsuit from the seller or buyer, depending on who's breaching it, or they may lose their earnest money, then they may say, oh, okay, I didn't realize that could happen. Because by the way, everyone in the party to the contract is supposed to read it, but we all know the reality. Okay, questions about timelines? Communication. Whew, this is a pet peeve. And I said, what good is it to submit an offer if you're not going to communicate? You submit an offer and then you ghost everyone, or you don't return the agent's call. I don't understand it. It was never a problem when I first got in the business, probably because we had bag phones and a phone that was attached to the wall and a beeper. So maybe we communicated better. Jason, don't laugh. But at the end of the day, you guys, if you're not communicating regularly, notification in writing, things of that nature, it's the number one reason NAR, when they do a poll with consumers and clients about realtors, this is the number one reason they complain: communication. We don't know if our offer was accepted. We don't know when we're closing. We don't know if we're approved. These are things that, this is your value proposition, as we've been talking about ad nauseum, to hone those skill sets to communicate. I don't mean texting. I know we have a lot of generations right now in the world, and everyone communicates different. I like a phone call. I like a text. I look at email last, but I look at all three because I need to communicate. If you don't have a set time to make sure you've looked at all your voicemails, emails, texts before you shut down for the day, or have some kind of communication to say, you won't hear from me until tomorrow unless it's an emergency, then that is not showing value how you operate. Okay, I see a couple of things in chat. Let me make sure somebody's laughing at me. Jason said fax machines. Thank you for putting the earnest email in there. Yeah, fax machine. I still have an e-fax. It might be hip again. I don't know. All right. Everyone must respond timely. You notice I didn't just say agents, everyone, your buyer, your seller. If you have 80-year-old clients and they go to bed at 6:30, you need to know that up front so that you can tell the other side, I've got to have this back before 5 because my clients go to bed early. If you have a couple with a brand new baby and they're exhausted and they're going to bed at 8 o'clock, you need to know that. When you're at the appointment, that should be part of the conversation. Do you have any time restrictions? Because once we get started, I may have to call you at 10 o'clock to get something signed. If you're not doing that, You're not honing your skill set and showing your value. Don't ghost parties. Don't ignore. Don't be afraid to call someone back because you don't know the answer. Call them and say, I don't know the answer. When I call a seller and we haven't had an offer on their property over the weekend, my day is Tuesday. Tuesday, when I sit in a listing appointment, I tell the seller, you will hear from me on Tuesday, whether we have of course, if we get an offer, you're going to hear from me sooner, but you will get an update every Tuesday. What's the next marketing thing? What people are saying? If they've given us any feedback, if they've not given us any feedback, it's also a good time for me to say, it's been 7 days now. We might need to refresh the price, if that's the case. That has been my policy since I learned how to do that at Century 21. So if you don't have something like that, get something like that. If it's an emergency, life happens. Really, it's God, family, and business. So if something happens, do not disappear from us. Let the broker know, let the team leader know, let your coach know. Find someone in your office that can take over your business for a day or two or an hour or two or whatever the case may be. But don't just disappear, because this is the number one broker call I get. And these are not the kind of calls I should be getting. Okay, I should be getting, how do I fill out this contract because I have a problem and this and that, not Susie won't call me back. So then I call Susie and I get Susie's voicemail, and then Susie doesn't call me back. Now, when you don't call the broker back, that's a problem. Just letting you know. All right. Make sure there's a valid phone number and email address on your contract in case of emergency. This has happened in our market center several times, where a person just completely disappears, or they don't, wake up until 5 p.m. And meanwhile, the rest of us that have been working all day can't reach an agent or whatever the case may be. You need to make sure that you have some kind of phone number that we can contact the seller to say, hey, today is the last day of due diligence. We've got to get you to sign it. If you remember from pre-license, it's broker or broker licensee. That's why the brokerage information is on the contract as well. So if something were to happen to you and, God forbid you're at the emergency room, we can keep your transaction moving. Okay. So it's not, we're all guilty of it, me including. Mine. No, it's the brokerage first. You're the licensee. Okay. And notification is in writing, not text or verbal. I don't see that ever being part of our world as far as real estate is concerned, because text can be manipulated and verbal can have amnesia. Okay. Ignoring a call, email, or text is not a negotiation strategy. It is rude and unprofessional, point blank. Any questions on that? Communication, war stories, I'll take it.
I can definitely testify to the part about meeting your either coach, colleague, or broker. I'm glad Jason is on. I had surgery that I had not planned for, and the day of my surgery was the day my due diligence ended.
There you go.
Jason was able to step right in. I connected him and the listing agent and my buyer together. And a couple of days later, I was able to kind of step back in a little bit to get the updates on what was happening. So you're absolutely right about that.
Thank you for that story. I appreciate that, because now everyone feels like it was seamless. They didn't know what you were up to unless you told them. But at the end of the day, it kept everything going, and they're looking at you as a professional. Jason is an extension of your team. I'm an extension of your team. Your team leader is an extension of your team. So don't go this alone and say, well, I'll get to them when I get to them. No, you are holding up a whole train by deciding not to return a call. Okay, thank you so much for that. And I hope you're feeling better.
I am.
All right, thank you. Certain concessions, so certain loan products have limits as to what the seller can contribute. We're hearing a lot more in this new environment of real estate when that unfolds, as far as what certain loans will be able to add additional concessions for any kind of commissions. This is not a commission discussion. I think all of us are over the whole compensation conversation. If you're not, I am. So, you know, we got to get back to normal again here and do real estate and not forget all of our mistakes that we might be making in contracts. But concessions, compensation may become part of a concession conversation in the future here. So, I mean, the future is here, but I still see co-op commissions being offered. I haven't run across one that was 0 yet. I'm sure it'll happen, but I haven't run across that yet. So in case, I know that you've seen this before if you're in Midtown. I think our lenders have talked about it. I've talked about it, but I just wanted to give this to you again. FHA, up to 6% concessions can be given by the seller. VA is 4%, and conventional is 3%. And USDA, which you don't see very often in this area, but we do have them, will be 6%. All right. Now, there's some other sub-levels to each one of these. I'm not going to go into that. That's for the lenders in our office to do with you. But I want you to know that those are the main 4 concessions allowed in a transaction. And a concession, for those of you that are new, closing costs, warranties. What else? Somebody help me here. I can't think of anything else. Those are the main 2 that people usually ask for. But anything that the seller is contributing of value towards the buyer's closing costs cannot exceed 6% of the loan amount. Not the sales price, but the loan amount. Okay. Now, in the event, the last part of this, in the event you negotiate, say, $10,000 worth of closing costs or concessions, and the concessions or the closing costs or total concessions only comes to maybe $7,000, that $3,000 goes back to the seller. But here's the secret. Lenders will find a way to use that money. What I see in the future, or what I have seen, is they might use that to buy down rates and things of that nature, or it goes to them as an origination fee or something like that. So if you're representing a seller and you're looking over the CD before closing and you see the closing costs only came to 7, then that $3,000 should be coming back to your seller. Okay. Are you guys looking at the CD before closing and going over the numbers and your contract to make sure everything is correct? That should be a high-fi yes. It's too quiet. Are you requesting the CD before closing?
Yes and yes.
Okay, good.
Yes and yes.
Okay, so look over that. So for those of you that didn't answer, that's okay. That's what we're here for, to learn. A couple days before closing, you should be asking the closing attorney, could you send me a preliminary CD? If it's cash, could you send me a preliminary HUD? Because cash deals still use a HUD-1 and loans use a CD. Okay, and then what you'll do is they'll send you the side that you represent, so you can then take your contract and go through it and go, yep, there's a warranty on here for $600. Yep, I've calculated, and they're supposed to get 5,000 closing costs. Yep, they're supposed to, you know, whatever is on there. So make sure. Oh, receipts. Yep, I see the receipts are on here to pay for that, you know, fireplace that needed to be replaced. All those different things you should be doing. Yes, you're going to do that at the closing table, but your closing is so much longer when you find an error and they have to keep going in the back to fix it and fix it and fix it. Because guess what? The attorneys are not perfect either. The pre-closer is not, the post-closer is not. So you are another set of eyes. So I usually arrive early if I didn't get it ahead of time so I can look it over, or I ask for it a day or 2 ahead of time, and I go over it with my client to say, now they're going to tell you this again. The numbers look like they're solid. And sometimes they'll say yes to it, and then I get there and the whole thing is different. Oh, you had a water bill. Oh, you had some back HOA you didn't tell me about. And that could change the numbers. And I compare it to my net sheet. Usually I'm only off by anywhere between $50 and $100. And that's because of depending on when we close. All right. Any questions or comments about that?
Yes, I have a question, please. My understanding was the CD, the closing disclosure, is from the lender, but Alta is what the closing attorney sent me, and I review it for my buyers.
I'm calling it CD, but Alta is what it is.
Oh, okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry.
No problem.
Okay. So you're doing that right. So I'm glad to hear that people are doing that. Okay. Number 6, non-warrantable properties. We are in the heart of Atlanta, so we are surrounded by condos, high-rise townhomes, things of that nature. And sometimes because of when we had the crash back in 2008-ish, we had a lot of foreclosures, people that didn't pay their HOA. If they weren't paying the mortgage, they probably weren't paying the HOA. And some of those are digging out now, and we're at a point where their reserves are back to normal. Sometimes people couldn't sell their homes, so they decided to lease it. And if the HOA or management company is not paying attention, they can lose the right to offer loans like FHA and VA because of certain criteria. That's why it's called non-warrantable. So there's a risk to that in a neighborhood, because let's say your community or the community is going through a lot of repairs. They're getting a new roof, and maybe the swimming pool has to be resurfaced, and they've used a lot of their reserves, and then someone decides to sell. Well, the reserves will go down, and the lender might go, well, when are you going to put that money back? That's very important, because then they might say, well, January we will be collecting dues again, and that reserve will go back up. So the lender will be able to, or the underwriter will be able to see that and decide whether this is a risk neighborhood or not. But if they see the following, this is what Fannie and Freddie consider a non-warrantable property. The condo development hasn't been completed. So, we have new construction all over Midtown and Buckhead. It's not complete. It's not warrantable yet. Less than half the units are owner occupied. It's usually a 40-60 ratio. So if you drop below that halfway mark with owner occupants, then there's a good chance this is not warrantable. When you are the buyer's agent, you should be asking the listing agent. If you're the listing agent, you need to verify that at the appointment. Most of the time, your seller is not going to know that. You can ask the lender, or you can go to the site to look up for FHA and VA to make sure it's warrantable. And then ask the lender as well. They can look it up and tell you. An individual or company owns more than 10% of the units within the building. That happens a lot in Midtown. More than 25% of the units are delinquent on their HOA fees. So it could be a great community, but if the management is not making sure they're collecting all the dues and they get to 25%, then the lender's probably not going to fund in that community. If the homeowners association isn't controlled by the building's residents, so when a community is new, it's owned by the developer. And then when the developer, what I remember, it used to be about 40% sold before they turned it over. But I'm noticing now in this new world real estate, a lot of these developers don't hand it over until they're completely done. And then they hand it over to the community or the property management company, whichever they have in place. For any of you that are commercial space is 35% or more. I know we don't always have a commercial person on here. Nicole, you have your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that was from earlier.
Okay, no problem. All right, and then there are pending lawsuits against the homeowners association. So when you fill out what I call the HOA form, there's a question on there, anything about litigation. If there's a homeowner suing the HOA and the lender or underwriter is able to find that, then there's a good chance they may not lend in that community, because they don't want someone to win a lawsuit and just wipe out the HOA that will mess with the asset of loaning money. Okay, so these are questions that you should ask. And you know what? I made a handout for you and didn't put it in there, but I will do that before we hang up. Real estate commission used as concession for personal home. So for those of you that have been able to buy a home since you became a realtor, or even before that, congratulations on purchasing a home. That's the whole purpose of being in this business, that we can buy properties for ourselves and rental properties and things of that nature. but here's what's going on when I get the call. I want to use my commission for down payment and closing costs. You know what? That's perfectly fine, but we need to back up a little bit. Remember when I said what's mine? We all say what's mine. It belongs to the seller, who then negotiates with their listing agent, and then it's paid to the brokerage. There's no mine yet, okay? Earnest money, if you look at commission, if you look at the definition, is when you earn it when you've provided a ready, willing, and able person. And then you go to a closing and they hand you a check. Or you bring the check back to the brokerage, and because we have an independent contract with our brokerage, we have agreed to a split, and that's when you've earned that money. Earned commission is when it's closed and funded. So if it's when you close, earned and funded, how is the commission being used to buy a home? So this is how that works. First, the commissions are offered by the seller and seller's agent. I just said that. Second, the commission belongs to the brokerage first. Third, we are licensees of the brokerage with an independent contract that gives direction as to what we agreed to pay you. The broker must write a letter on your behalf agreeing to use your commission. Now, I'm getting a lot of calls with someone saying, and I've had a few where they're saying, I want to use my commission for down payment. Okay, if the lender says that you can do that, because a down payment means, let's just say you're not a realtor, you're working with a buyer, where is their down payment coming from? It could come from savings, it could come from a market account, it could be a gift, any of those things. Don't you have to document those things? Isn't the underwriter checking to see where that money came from? If you're talking about commission, you haven't earned it yet. It's on paper, but there's nothing to verify. So be real careful, let your colleagues know, check with the lender to see if they will allow you to use the commission for down payment. Let me tell you why that's a little scary in this new world of real estate. What if there's no commission offered? Okay, what if your down payment is $10,000 and you think you're going to get a commission of $12,000, but then the commission ends up being less than that? Do you have the money for the difference? What most people use their closing costs or their commission for is to either lower the price by that amount or closing costs. Now, if you lower the price by that much, and I'm gonna get a little mathy on you, if you need help with this, feel free to talk to any of us about it to make a smart wealth decision. Okay, does it make more sense to take the commission? Does it make more sense to bring the price down? Does it make more sense to use it for your closing costs? You can use it however you want. That's not the issue. We're not debating that. But I don't think everybody is thinking that through when they do it, because there's a smart way to do it. Okay, so make sure you pay attention to it. If you are not in Midtown, you want to check with your team leader, MCA, or broker. In Midtown, we do have a personal property policy because we still have to pay what's called royalty. Royalty money does not belong to us, and the royalty is 6%. We don't care what you're charging yourself for commission, but that personal policy will explain it in detail if you're in Midtown. If you don't have a copy of that, you should have gotten that during your orientation. And if you don't have it, you can check with myself, any of the coaches, or the team leader, or even Annie, the MCA. If you're in a different market center, you can check with them. Any questions about this? This is becoming very popular, which I'm very happy about, that people are getting in home ownership. But when it comes to your commission, yes, you can use it. FMLS does not charge you when you are buying your personal property, not rental properties, only your primary. Okay, so you wouldn't have to pay the 0.0012%, and we don't charge you the 30%, which is the company dollar, but you've got to pay 6%, and then we have a small administrative fee that you would have to pay. And I usually write the letters, so no one else can write the letter but the broker. So it's either myself, Tom, or Angie would write that. No one else can write that. Okay. And most of all, make sure the lender is going to allow you to use those funds. I mean, everybody's going to be different. It doesn't matter whether it's FHA, VA, or conventional. The lender is the one who will allow you to use that. Okay. And if you haven't earned them yet, how are they verifiable in your account? All right. And then what if the seller doesn't offer a commission? Now what? All right. Lead paint, that needs to be signed prior to binding. So listing agents, make sure you get that signed and filled out at the appointment. Then you can upload that onto FMLS so that a buyer's agent can download it, give it to their buyer to review and sign, because that date has to be prior to the binding. So today's the 22nd. If you were showing them a house that they decided to make an offer on, then you should have had the lead paint yesterday and binding today. If we're ever audited by the EPA, they're going to pull files randomly and ask us about that. Okay, Nicole, your hand's up again. Is that just still up, or you have a question?
It must still be up. I'll take it down.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure. Homes built before 1978, a requirement? Yes. Homes built after 1978, a requirement? No. The reason I put this on here is because there are some brokerages that they have a policy that all contracts have to have the lead paint. There's nothing wrong with it. It's overkill, but there's nothing wrong with that. We have a city with a lot of renovations, and you don't know whether or not, if it was a 1960 home, whether it was stripped all the way down to, you know, the slab. And when I teach contracts, I even say use it anyway, because we don't know what's leached in the ground, because lead can leach into the ground. Okay, so encapsulation means you cover it with paint, or you scrape it off and redo it, and all those different things, or you encapsulate it so it doesn't leach out. But you don't know that. And maybe the listing agent doesn't know it. Maybe the seller doesn't know it. So some companies, it's not a requirement in our office. Only for the 1978 before is a requirement. That's a law. Okay. That's not a real estate thing. That's a law. And you would be fined. Notice I said you would be fined $16,000 for each violation. This has gone up over the years. And last year it was 15. This year it's 16. I think it'll keep going up. And there's a reason it keeps going up, because people are probably breaching it. Okay. Does anybody know the show Tariq El Moussa? I think it is. I forget. Flipper Flop. Is he Flipper Flop? I can't remember. He was fine for that, because he does a lot of, I think he does different homes now, but when he first started, he did a lot of the ugly home type renovation, and he had a violation. It was a big one. There's 2 HGTV stars. He's one of them. I can't remember the other one, but I read an article about that, and he had paid a fine for that. Number 9, verification of funds. Cash offers should include.
Can I ask a quick
Hey, I had a-
question?
Yes, Zane and Amberlyn. Yes.
Zina.
Zina,
So
I'm
what if the house built on 1978? Is this before or after?
It says before 1978.
I mean, if it's
So if it's
the
built
year of like,
1978, I would do it anyway.
okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
If I missed it one time, is this violation?
I'm sorry.
If I missed it one time, is this a violation?
Yes.
It was 1978, and the other agent said it's not required. So I just didn't want to create problems.
Yeah. So when it comes to asking other agents,
I know.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I call that the water cooler conversation. Go to your team leader, your broker, you know, the people that study and stay on top of this stuff daily, because you and I both know agents aren't getting this wonderful broker chat every other week to stay on top of their game. Great question. Amberlyn.
So lately, especially with this last client I've been working with, it's a buyer, and we've been looking at older homes, and I've been noticing that the co-ops haven't provided the lead-based paint, exhibit and things like that. So we created, and when I submitted my offer, I just put together one and had my client, send it over. But I would like email, because that, again, this goes back to communication of me reaching out to the agents before we submit an offer and me not getting a response from them.
Then you call me, and we can call the broker to get it, because the broker is responsible for making sure you guys do this. When a person lists, this is why command is important, to have all your documents uploaded. So when you take a listing and you get that lead paint signed ahead of time, it's uploaded. So if you had called the office, I could go into, or Jason could go into, or Lee could go into and pull down the lead paint and give it to you. We're here to teach you best practices, but unfortunately we are co-oping with people that don't practice good practices, if that makes sense.
Right. And
So,
that's been the problem.
right. But you don't let yourself get fined $16,000 because someone didn't call you back.
So,
Both of you will get fined.
So if it's an active contract and like we haven't officially closed yet, if that's the document that's already signed, should I just be going back to the listing agent and asking them for the lead-based paint exhibit that they had their client sign previously? Like, how would that work if this is like we're actively under contract?
Well, it sounds like what you're describing to me, that they didn't ever get this signed ahead of time. Is that correct?
I can't say for sure or not, but they didn't provide it to me, no.
Okay. So at the end of the day, I would make a note that the listing agent did not provide this prior to, just to cover yourself. But at the end of the day, you should not be going binding until your buyer has seen this exhibit. That is a law, period.
Okay. Well, that's a good update. I just wanted to make sure, because I know I made sure she had the lead-based paint exhibit, or the lead-based paint disclosure and stuff. So I just want to double check.
Yeah, lead paint exhibit and the pamphlet. Make sure they have it. And what I teach in the contract classes, get all the CB consumer brochures into one zip file. And when they sign their brokerage engagement, you give them that. That way you've covered everything, whether they're doing it or not, whether they need the brochure or not. They can look at the ones that refer to them and go from there. Verification of funds. Cash offer should include verification of funds. I'm finding that when we have a lot of cash deals going on and people are not verifying that people have this money, I want you to know people can download fake letters online saying they have $1 million and so on and so forth. A lot of these investors go to these hotel, motel, ballroom situations and become wholesalers, and they can get the letter from the company and so on and so forth. So you want to be careful with that. So when I get a cash offer, I need to see it. I need to smell it. I need to roll around in it. And so if you can't show that to me for me to do all of those three things, then we have a problem with your cash offer. So it should be a letter from the branch manager. And a lot of people ask me, can I ask for that? You absolutely can. And you should. If you're the listing agent and you're letting your seller get excited about a cash offer and there's no cash, then that math is not mathing. Letter from verifiable asset management. Sometimes it's coming from a 401k or it's coming from some type of market account. You want to see a copy of it. Now, if you are the buyer's agent, you want to make sure that your buyer will black out any, personal information. We just need to see the money and make sure it's a recent bank account. I don't want something that was 6 months ago, because I don't know if that money is still there. And then what I do, when I get that, I will call the bank or the asset management or the branch manager to say, hi, my name is Deborah. This buyer is making an offer on a property. I just need to verify that they have the following account and funds in this account. And they can verify that. It's no different, if you remember when we used to write checks, that you would verify the check was good before you cashed it, right? Same thing. Same thing. They can't tell you how much is in the account, but they can verify that whatever you're holding, they have that amount of money. And if they don't have it, let's say it's $1 million sale, but they only show 700,000, then that's a reason to ask the agent, this letter only says 7, the house is $1 million. Is there another account that we're verifying to cover the entire amount that you're offering before we take the house off the market? because everybody thinks cash is king. That is a statement, but I've had deals that were cash fall apart. No one thinks a cash deal can fall apart. Yes, it can. Okay. Verify the authenticity of any PDF files that you get, and screenshots. I'm not understanding why we're giving, first of all, you shouldn't be screenshotting anybody's check or account on your phone, because phones can be hacked, and now you've got the whole routing number and all that kind of stuff. You want to protect your client as much as possible, and I don't want their information on my phone, okay? Because I can't verify my phone is safe. All right, so verify the authenticity of PDF files, and screenshots are easy to alter. We've got Photoshoot or Photoshop or whatever it's called, all kinds of things on the internet now that can alter things. So I want to verify it. And number 10, inspections. So we've heard of caveat emptor, buyer beware. This is the buyer's responsibility to vet anything they want in an inspection. It could be, is this house near a graveyard? Is this community going to have a truck depot built next door? All of those things have to do with the inspection, okay? But have you ever heard of caveat venditor, seller beware? The seller is required to disclose latent defects, even if they're selling it as is, okay? Everybody thinks when they sell as is, they don't have to do anything. No, they have to disclose latent defects. And the seller doesn't have to disclose something based on the opinion of an inspector that is not a certified inspector, because that certified inspector is not a roofer or a plumber. They're making an opinion about the house. So a lot of people get arguing back and forth about things because the inspector said. Well, I can be an inspector tomorrow with a tool belt, and so can you. So there are some that have taken it to the next level by having certain certifications and things of that nature, but they're still not the expert. When you have a specific roofer, plumber, electrical, that's when you drill down to the specialist, okay? So if you are not familiar with Wiseman's videos that come out once every week or two, you'll see right here where you can subscribe. You go to YouTube and put in Wiseman PC. If you haven't already done this, I would encourage you, because he gives videos. He's probably up to like 100 now. I think the last time I watched one that just recently came out. This one's good, guys. If you're a listing agent and you have a service who's putting your sign in the yard, or if you are putting in the sign in the yard, and we're in the rainy, windy season now, there is a pending lawsuit right now that Wiseman is litigating, that the sign flew out of the seller's yard into someone's car window, and they're suing the agent. That is a first that I've ever heard. So when you are putting those signs in the yard, please make sure, he's got a video on here about it. I don't know which number it was, but I was catching up on my videos this weekend. And when I saw that one, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So please make sure when you are securing those signs in the yard, and if you have a company that's doing it, ask them to take a picture. You know why? Because just like inspectors, they have a disclaimer saying, we know nothing about nothing, we just put the sign in the yard. So notice they didn't attack the sign company. They're coming after the brokerage and the agent to replace their car, fix it, whatever it is. Questions? Concerns? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, we learned a
Yes.
lot.
Good.
I have a question about 2 slides ago about the account number and the routing number on verification of fund. Do we need to hide this from when we send it? Because I know account number and routing number, like routing number, everybody can get it if they just
Yes.
Google the name of the bank. And
Yes.
account number is on the check, and people use their checks all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You
So
want to, yeah, I would highly recommend that. Yes.
you highly recommend to like
You want to
hide them?
hide the info. Is that what you're asking me? Hiding the
Yeah.
info? Yeah. I mean, all they need to see is the amount. So if you are sending something, I wouldn't send anything showing someone's account or routing number or any of that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's person. I mean, that's, you know, when you go to the store to buy a candy bar, they want to know your name, your address, your, you know, your weight, your birth date. You know, I just want to buy this because they're collecting data. And also, I don't want to be responsible for putting something out there that could be hacked.
Thank you.
Yep.
The
Well,
one thing,
Go ahead.
real quick, the one thing that stood out for me is making sure we get the lead-based paint exhibit from the seller before going binding. My last transaction, she was waiting on to receive it via mail from the siblings. And so we did get it before the earnest money was turned in, of course, which I know you always say when you go to make an offer, you should have the earnest money in. But we got it before the earnest money turned in, which was, I think we had 2 days, but we didn't get it when they accepted the offer. So that is new for me. So I definitely need to make sure I do, because I don't have.
That's an EPA violation. So you definitely want to make sure you're getting that prior to, that's always been. I think people are just now hearing it because someone like myself and Jason, we are constantly saying that.
Yeah. Some of us are just waking up to it. We probably
That's
heard
okay. We want you to wake up. When you wake up is when you wake up.
Amen.
It's the ones that are sleeping at the water cooler.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, they're going to kick me off because they've got to use this Zoom link. So if there's any questions we didn't answer, please feel free to call me direct. Call Jason. We'll help you with that. And I thank you guys for showing up. Tell your colleagues what they missed today because it was good. You guys had good questions.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Deborah.
Have
Deborah.
a good day.
That was great.
Have
Will
a
we be
great
able to get
day.
your slides?
Oh, you know what? Send me an email, dblue@kw.com.
Okay, this is
dblue@kw.com, and I'll send it to you. I forgot to.
This is Barbara. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.